Hello, BookTube and BookTube friends. Thanks for joining me for another video. Today I'm going to do what I hope to be, or I hope will be, the first video of a series that will focus on the big chunky books in my book life. And I decided to start off with a series of books by one author, and most of these are books that I have actually read. If I develop this series to any greater length, I will have to include books that I sadly have not read, but we'll talk more about that later. So today I would like to talk about the books of an American biographer by the name of Robert Caro. And he has a few books to his credit, but he is well known for his biography, his biographical series of books on Lyndon Baines Johnson. And I have read all of them. And there are 4 volumes in the LBJ set, and we have not yet gotten to the period in LBJ's life of the Vietnam years or of his relatively short retirement. So Robert Caro is, I believe, I sure hope he is still alive. I think he is still alive as of this video recording. He is well into his 80s. I think the LBJ series was originally supposed to have been perhaps 2 volumes. Like I said, it is at 4 volumes at the moment, and it's still not complete. But I'd like to talk about these books. These are great books, and most of them are pretty hefty books. The Lyndon Johnson series starts off with this book. This is The Path to Power. It starts from his birth, really, and before his birth, really. There is it's a pretty great history of the family lines from which LBJ came, and it's a pretty fascinating history of the development of Texas as a state, and just lots of fascinating stuff in here. This first volume goes from his birth, and like I said before, up through, I want to say, maybe his first run for the Senate around 1940. Maybe it runs up into late 1930s. I don't quite recall which, but it's a pretty packed volume. It runs to the written text runs to a whopping 768 pages, and this is just the first volume, but it really is a great book. I think it's one of the best, even though this book is not a full biography. It's one of the best just American biographies out there, and I heartily recommend it. I have read it. I have listened to it on audio at least once. The audio version that I have is read by Grover Gardner, who is one of my favorites, if not my most favorite audio narrator. And this is a great volume, and I heartily recommend it. The second volume in the series is the is the shortest of the bunch, and it comes to just a little over 400 pages. And this is Lyndon Johnson, Means of Ascent. And most of the book is concerned with Johnson's well-known, famous or infamous, as you would have it, run for the Senate in 1948. That was a race in which he won, or was at least declared the winner of the race. and as Caro documents, there no doubt was some chicanery, some manipulation of the ballot boxes, and of course this was an era when such things were not unknown, but there's pretty good evidence here that Johnson's camp really did, do some pretty shady stuff, and he was very he was very fortunate to have gotten away from it, but gotten away with it. But interestingly, the book is not just about LBJ. The book also contains a great deal of material on LBJ's opponents in that 1948 race, and that man's name was Coke Stevenson, and Coke was I think at the time he had been governor a few terms. He was a much beloved figure in Texas. Caro documents his sort of rise to prominence and his ascent as well. So the book is not quite a dual biography of Coke Stevenson and LBJ, but there is a pretty healthy dose of material relating to Coke Stevenson, and it's just a fascinating story, and just another very compelling read. These are big books that Caro has done, but they are well written, and as far as these biographies and big books go, they are very readable. Caro just has, I think, a really great prose, and with that, we come to the third volume in the Caro LBJ set, and that was Master of the Senate, which clocks in the written text is over 1,000 pages. So if you're keeping track, the first volume went to over 700. The second volume went to about 400, so we're up to about 1,100 pages of LBJ, and the Master of the Senate more or less doubles that output. Master of the Senate deals with LBJ's senatorial career, which went from 1948 through 1960, if I'm not mistaken. I think LBJ had run for the Senate in 1940 or 1941, and it had kind of looked like he was possibly going to win, but he did not win that race. So he ran again in 1948, and that was the race in which he won, or was at least declared the winner, and entered the Senate. And one of the interesting things about Johnson's senatorial career was how quickly he arose the leadership ranks. He found power in nominal offices that had not really had power before. He emerged to be the party's ranking leader when the Republicans were in the majority of the Senate, and so the Democratic leader or the minority leader was, I believe, called like the ranking leader, and it was not an important post really until LBJ sort of grabbed it and made something of it. And then when Democrats won the majority of the Senate in the 1950s, LBJ became the party's and the Senate's majority leader, and he wielded tremendous influence and tremendous power in that role. And the book also starts off talking about the context in which the the barriers to voting and even to voting registration for African Americans in much of the South. Johnson was instrumental in passing, arranging the passage of the 1957 Civil Rights Act, which does not has not gotten is not well remembered today, and the bill certainly was. Its provisions were the sharpest of its provisions were softened, were negated by the power brokers of the South to kind of ensure that their hold on power and barriers to African American voting in the South would remain. So it was not a bill that was embraced by civil rights leaders, but as Caro explains it, it was a crucial kind of first step in the process. And of course, LBJ would be at the helm of the presidency after the death of John F. Kennedy, and LBJ would be instrumental in passing the first Civil Rights Act in 1964, which opened up accommodations to restaurants and hotels and business establishments and things of that nature to African Americans that had been segregated throughout much of the South and through the Upper South, I might add as well. And then, of course, Johnson helped lead the legislative and administrative forces that passed the Voting Rights Act in 1965. And Johnson's Senate career was really as a leader of the Southern Democrats, and so he was not regarded as a liberal in today's terms by any means. But that Johnson did go on to lead the legislative forces that passed first the 1957 Civil Rights Act, of which the Eisenhower administration was a key contributor to and supporter of, and then later the Civil Rights and Voting Rights Acts of the 1960s, in response to obviously the civil rights protests and the role of the very many activists that laid the groundwork for presenting to the country the significant moral and political problems inherent in trying to keep a portion of its population disenfranchised and to deny the benefits of citizenship to so many people. So that is the first 3 volumes of the LBJ series. The last entry is The Passage of Power, and it details the rise of Johnson to the vice presidency. Well, really first his reach for the presidency itself in 1960, and what was believed on the part of many that the 1960 nomination could have been LBJ's to take, but he really was sort of limited, or he limited himself in the efforts that he made, and he really underestimated JFK, who was also in the Senate with him, but was not as involved in the legislative process or the leadership process as Johnson was, but Kennedy nevertheless better engineered his own rise to the presidency and his winning of the nomination in 1960, and then of course the much discussed process by which JFK invited LBJ to be his vice presidential nominee. And so this book the passage of power covers the 1960 election and Johnson's years as vice president, and then finally the Kennedy assassination, which catapulted Johnson to the presidency. And I believe the book goes up through the passage of the Civil Rights Act in 1964, and I think it covers Johnson's election or re-election in 1964. That I don't quite recall, but I have read this book, and I've also listened to it on audio again, with Grover Gardner being the narrator. This volume clocks in at the written portion is just over 600 pages. So if you're keeping count, we're up to about 2,700 pages of biography by Robert Caro for Lyndon Johnson, and we're not done with the life of LBJ yet. And I hope Caro lives to write the final volume, if there is a final volume, or if there's a final 2 volumes. Johnson would not seek re-election in 1968, and he would pass away at a still young age in, I want to say, 1960 or 1972, or the beginning of 1973. I don't quite recall. So there you have it. So we're still waiting for the final years of LBJ, and I hope Robert Caro is still working on those, and that he lives to write them, or perhaps he will leave enough material on hand that a successor will be able to assemble that material in anything like Robert Caro's fabulous narrative prose. And finally, I want to bring before your attention this granddaddy. This is The Power Broker by Robert Caro. It is about Robert Moses, and the subtitle is, the full title is The Power Broker, Robert Moses and the Fall of New York. Robert Moses was a developer, major power behind the scenes of building sort of modern New York City as I understand it. It is regarded as a modern classic. It is also an overwhelming 1,100 pages or 1,200 pages, 1,100 pages, 1,162 pages. And I will admit I have not fully read this book. It is a mammoth of a book, and I'll admit I was a little wary. I was a little wary of buying this, and I think I just kind of got it on a whim, and wasn't really sure I'd be able to tackle it. And I did start to read it, but it just really was not quite for me, and so it is still sitting on my shelves. I would be interested in hearing from any of you if you have read any of the Robert Caro books on LBJ, or if you have gotten through The Power Broker. And I would like to follow up in the next few videos and talk about some other big, large, chunky books that I have loved, or that I have been at least persuaded to buy, that I have been infatuated by, some of which I have read, some of which I have not read. But this is an area of my book collection I look forward to talking to you all a bit more about. So thanks again for watching, and if you like this video, please click the thumbs up button, and if you are interested in any of the videos that I have done so far and would like to encourage me to make more, please feel free to hit the subscribe button as well. So for now, I thank you, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day and your week. Bye-bye.